Joining me now, Sheriff David Clarke. Sheriff, there was never a time to get you on more than now. Thanks for joining us. I want to get to Minnesota. I want to get to what happened with the shooting. I want to get to the riots, the whole thing. I want to get to Walz telling the National Guard to fight federal law enforcement, which is basically secession. I think that's what they did at Fort Sumter, if I'm not mistaken. Break this down for us, Sheriff David Clarke, former sheriff, Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. Sheriff, thanks for being with us.
John, it's my pleasure, and it's always good to get to talk to your listeners and your viewers. What happened in Minneapolis last week was going to happen eventually. If you look at all the assaults that these ICE agents are under just to do their job, and I mean physical assaults, these are not standard protests, all right? These are rebellions, is what they are, and they're turning more violent and they're turning more physical. And I've been pleading with every platform I have for ICE agents to up the ante a little bit here, to push back against this insurrection, physical assaults, and the shooting. Now look, I wasn't on the scene and I don't have privy to all of the investigation, but when I was with the Milwaukee Police Department as a detective, I was on the police officer use of force team that was sent to investigate any time a use of deadly force came into play. And then when I got promoted to lieutenant, I was the commander of that unit, the police officer shooting team, they called it. And so I have some familiarity with these investigations, how they should go, what should be done. And I'm just trying to state my qualifications before I go on here, because too many people that we're hearing from, John, they have no idea what they're talking about. All right, they're just flapping their gums. And I'm talking about politicians, and I'm talking about the talking heads on TV, mainly on your liberal stations, trying to explain to the public what's going on, and they have no idea. They ought to bring in people like me to kind of break this down for them. Now, I don't care. I'm not going to try to convince anybody who saw the videos, and there's 100 videos out there, different angles, whatever. There's only one piece of evidence. All right, we haven't heard from the officer yet. The case has not been presented. The investigation is not final. Well, we can make some early observations. And what I always do, because what I had to do when I investigated these, the standard I use is the United States Supreme Court case on the police use of deadly force, and it's Graham versus O'Connor. And I bet half these people who are talking about this have no idea what the standard is. It's the Supreme Court case that lays out when a law enforcement officer can use deadly force and what has to happen. In a nutshell, what Graham v. Connor indicates is that the standard is the objective, reasonable law enforcement officer, not the camera guy, not the talking head on TV, not the politician, the reasonable law enforcement officer. What would they do under these circumstances? Not every cop. It just says the officer on the scene. That would be this guy who fired the shot. And so we have to look at it from his perspective. The court also recognizes that these decisions are made in split seconds. All right, you don't have a lot of time to process information before you have to take action. The court mentions that and says this cannot be done under the lens of 20/20 hindsight. It has to be done under reasonable circumstances of that cop who's on the scene, who uses that force at the time. So that's the standard we have to use, and that's the one I'm using here. But I haven't talked to the officer, I admit that, but I've been in these situations, and I've also interviewed cops who had to use deadly force to get their perspective, and they tell you, man, this happened in a flash. I saw this guy reach for something. I saw a gun. Even if you don't see a gun, but the guy's reaching in a place that people will conceal guns, suspects. That's reasonable to assume that guy's reaching for a gun. So you don't have to see a gun. And every time we see this, I'm hearing this woman who put herself in this stupid position that she was unarmed. That has nothing to do with it under Graham v. Connor. Okay, under Graham v. Connor, she used her vehicle to drive at the officer. He doesn't have to wait until he's hit. It's reasonable for him to assume, yes, my life is in danger and she might hit me, and to take quick, decisive action. So when I break it down like that, what I saw, applying the standard of Graham v. Connor, that's the legal standard, by the way, Graham v. Connor. It's the United States Supreme Court case, the law of the land. When I apply that standard, what I saw was justifiable.
Would you have done the same thing?
Oh, hell yeah. No doubt about it. Look, I always, when I went into work, when I was in uniform, more so than as a detective, because you're not really in these situations, but sometimes you are. My goal was, I'm going home tonight. I'm going home at the end of this shift. All right. Pray to God. I prayed every day going out, but I said, I'm going home. So, it always doesn't work that way. I think 245 officers were shot in the line of duty last year. I bet people don't know that either. Not that they have to know it, but what I'm saying is I keep up with this stuff. So when I'm flapping my gums, I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Uh-huh. So when you look at this video, and one more little bit on it. I mean, I looked at it a number of times. I'm just a layman. But they told her to get out of the car. She didn't do it. She locked the door. That's strike one. You tell my family, cop comes over and says, license, window, get out of the car. You do what he says. Otherwise, you put yourself in harm's way because they're the police or they're law enforcement. Well, she locks her door and she puts the car in reverse and backs up with full acceleration. Okay. If somebody was behind the car, they're in a wheelchair, right? If you were behind that car, you're not on my show today. You're now crippled or you're in the hospital, run over. She didn't look in her rear view mirror. Then she puts it in drive, turns the wheel towards the officer, not away, towards him. And he's partially hit and has to get out of the way, and he shoots her because she's got a weapon and a wheel and an accelerator. I mean, when Vance did the press conference last Wednesday, and the fake news clown showers, the bar scene, the Star Wars people were badgering him with questions. He said, I don't need an investigation. I saw the video. It's right in front of your face. Why do we need anything else?
Because that's what our standard is. An investigation has to ensue. You have to talk to all the witnesses, all
Right.
that kind of stuff that goes on. Because like I said, when I started talking here, the video is only one piece of evidence. So, when the vice president said that he's not wrong, I mean, that's kind of my take in a lot of these situations. I go, I don't have to be told what happened here. I see it. I understand what happens in these split-second decisions, and I know why that officer did what that officer did at the time. Look, this is a classic case, John, of failure to comply with a law enforcement officer's lawful commands. Get out of the car, roll the window down, turn the engine off. Those are lawful commands that a citizen has an obligation to comply with. And so when I hear all this crap, well, she's a mother and doesn't matter. She still has to comply with a law enforcement officer's commands. And then as more information comes out about this woman, we find out that she was also involved in some other nefarious stuff. I mean, like anti-ice training, for heaven's sakes. Where the hell does that go on? Anti-ice training. We need to find out who's conducting this training, and we need to do something about the fact, probably, conduct an investigation. If there's any criminal aspect to what they're doing here, charge these people. Look, these are very organized rebellions here. These are not protests. They're very organized. They're well funded, and they're turning violent, John. And that's the thing that's starting to really tick me off, and why I said earlier in our conversation, I've been waiting for ICE to up the ante a little bit, because here's another thing. When an officer is under assault or attack, they have the right to use an amount of force to overcome that resistance, not meet it. In other words, people say, well, she didn't have a gun, or it doesn't matter. He or she gets to use a level of force to overcome the resistance, overcome it, not meet the resistance. And I've been seeing these ICE agents, who I fully support, by the way, put up with a lot of crap that I wouldn't have put up with on the street. I just would not have. But see, you have to think about these things ahead of time. And that's a decision that the ICE agent has to make, not David Clarke. However, with my experience of almost 40 years in law enforcement officer, I've been in the middle of these situations. I've investigated these situations, and people want to know why most of the time, 90 some percent of the time, the officer is justified in using that force. Because if you apply the legal standard, Graham v. Connor and some other Supreme Court decisions, they give the benefit of the doubt. And in some of these cases, the judges have said this. They give the benefit of the doubt to the officer, not the citizen.
Right, because they have to act in a split second. This guy was already, went through a car incident where he was dragged 150 feet. He had a bunch of stitches, could have ended his life, or had him maimed for life or something of that nature. Okay, so I think you've pretty much summed up what went down here. And the other thing you said that I want to emphasize is this is not an isolated incident. I mean, you go to anti-ICE training. What's that? Who's paying for it? And how many incidents across the country ICE agents have faced this violence? People throwing things at them, Molotov cocktails, God knows what. They face this over and over and over. And like you said, eventually something's going to happen, right?
Right. They're doing their job. This is what they're sworn to do. This is what they're trained to do. Enforce immigration. That's why they're called ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. That's what their job is. And it's already laid out. Here's what we're doing. Here's why. Here's what's going to happen after this. And they just go out and do what they're told, John. All right. These people, these clowns who are resisting this stuff and rebelling against it, they don't think the law applies to them. And they don't care, really. They might know that what they're doing is unlawful, but here's the thing, John. They're not being held to account. And so they keep pushing the ante. They keep pushing the line. And I've been pleading, not directly, but through the TV set and other means, for the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. I've been pleading with her and Pam Bondi, start holding these people accountable. We need not just arrests, but we need criminal prosecutions. All right. And all we're getting out of Pam Bondi, and I like Pam Bondi. I know Pam Bondi, not personally, but I've met her at several conferences, law enforcement conferences in Florida. When she was the state AG, I was a keynote speaker at a gang conference there where I met her. All we're getting out of her are warnings. And same with Kristi Noem, warning. The warnings are off the table now. These people know what they're doing is wrong and criminal, but they also know this. I haven't been held to account. Why should I back off? Why should I stop? I should keep pushing the ante until I find out where that line is. I heard Pam Bondi the other day say something was a red line. The hell with red lines. The hell with red lines. Okay? It's head cracking time.
I agree 100%. The inaction of our Justice Department, the talk. So all they do is talk. Now you got walls basically under his nose, or maybe he's complicit or not. No one knows, but like 12, 15, $18 billion stolen, money getting shipped out, TSA looking the other way, millions of dollars going through security. That's fine. I mean, this whole thing is so corrupt in there. But now he says that he's going to deploy the National Guard to fight federal troops. Isn't that what's called secession?
Yeah, it's insurrection. It's a decision that the Department of Justice and the prosecuting attorneys, assistant attorney generals and whatnot, it's the decision they're going to have to make. However, again, John, if they don't up the ante, this stuff is going to continue. You can't allow these individuals to talk recklessly, which is ginning up the violent base. They're knuckleheads on the left. It's ginning them up when they're making these statements like this. That goofball mayor, Fry, I think his name is, of Minneapolis, talking get the F out of Minneapolis. Nobody has to get the F out of anything. I was glad when a couple days later, Secretary Noma announced she's sending hundreds of more agents into Minneapolis. I said, good. That's the response. When they tell you get the F out, you double the amount of people that you have there and show them, oh yeah, you want to see get the F out? No, we're coming the F in with more people. I want to see that sort of aggressiveness, and I want to hear those words come out of her mouth. Why? Why is that important? So that the American public starts to have the confidence that the government is taking care of this thing and they're going to do something about it. But if without any action, the American people look and go, well, heck, what's going on? What is the law? Why isn't the law being enforced? So, messaging's important, which is why I'm glad she announced, I'm sending hundreds of more agents into Minneapolis. Good. These ICE agents, they're outnumbered. They're under siege. There was a group the other day after the shooting that assaulted the hotel these agents are staying at, for heaven's sakes. Surrounded it, came inside, creating a ruckus. That's gotta be scary as hell. If you're one of those agents in there knowing, hey, these people could break into my room and beat the crap out of me or worse. And, where's the fight? Where's the pushback? Where's the support? You're not going to get it from the local police. Forget about the Minneapolis Police Department. They're still beat down after the George Floyd thing. They're shaking in their boots about doing anything. And then Walt's threatening to use the National Guard to fight federal agents. Yeah, that's a high level of insurrection as you can get, for heaven's sakes, just to make that threat.
Unbelievable. Dan Bongino leaves the FBI. Now he's going back to, in February, doing a podcast or something. So I just want to get your take here. I mean, I like Dan. I know him a long time. Backed him when he ran for Congress, almost pulled an upset. Hosted my radio show many, many times. Kind of started him in it. Great guy. Ran for U.S. Senate in Maryland. Had a super show. We carried him for a while. Great guy. Goes to the FBI. When he was on his show, rails against the FBI for doing nothing over and over and over. It's part of how he made his shtick. Goes to the FBI, does nothing there. Now he quits or leaves or whatever it is, resigns, and goes back to radio podcasting. What's the deal here?
Well, yeah, and like you, I like Dan Bongino as well, but I'm not going to let that sort of thing cloud my judgment when people ask me my opinion of this stuff or my analysis. First of all, I thought it was a bad fit. Look, the FBI is an investigative agency, and it's been corrupted over the decades. Really, Dan doesn't have any investigative agency experience. He's with the Secret Service. It's not an investigative agency. It is a protection agency. And now I know he worked with NYPD for a couple of years before going to Secret Service, but I don't know that alone qualifies you to be in a position in an investigative agency. Now he went in there, with a lot of pre-talk about what went on and what's going on here, and we're being lied to, and he's not wrong, but then he got into a position to do something, and then he made some, comments while he was there. Took on Pam Bondi, which you never do, by the way. That was a huge tactical error. He made a statement. These are from news reports, okay? He said, it's either me or her. Oh, man, you don't ever do that to your boss. You don't ever put your boss in a situation that they have no other course but to slap you down. And so he went there and, he went in saying he was going to release all the information and there's lists and fly lists and then he got there and then he said the opposite. There is no fly. There is no more evidence. Epstein didn't wasn't murdered. He committed, but that's not what he was saying when he went in. Now, I understand he didn't have the information before he went in, but then he should have first said, you know what, I said a lot of things before I came in, but now I've seen, and yeah, I was wrong when I was out there, but here's what I'm seeing from in here. And then I just think his biggest error was taking on Pam Bondi. Kind of, you don't ever, tell the president. I'm not saying he did it directly, but it's me or her. No, you cannot do that. But I'll tell you what. Then they went, John, after Dan left, and I think that they made a bigger tactical error in promoting some guy from within the agency, a career Secret Service agency, to take Dan's spot. That agency's corrupt. You don't go to that pool to pick somebody, for heaven's sakes. That agency has no trust. So you're going to bring in somebody who has sat there their entire time watching the corruption and put them now as second in command? Doesn't give the American people any confidence that that agency is going to be scrubbed out. That agency is going to be purged of all of these people, little at a time. You can't, fire everybody all at once. But I think he needed, and I'm talking about the FBI director now. Excuse me. He didn't do this by himself. Excuse me. He obviously did this in consultation with Pam Bondi, who's his boss. Don't bring in somebody from the corrupt organization. If you got a barrel of rotten apples and you want to make an apple pie, why would you take apples from the rotten barrel to make the apple pie? You got to go get some new apples. I think you should have brought in somebody from the outside, and I don't mean a DC bureaucrat again, but somebody from a law enforcement agency, some former sheriff or some former chief who has this sort of experience and how these agencies are supposed to be run, that can go on there and help Patel and others to straighten this organization out. Patel, and look, another guy I respect and I like, but I'm not going to let that cloud my judgment. He hasn't done a lot to clean out that organization.
It's got to clean it out. I mean, I think in our, to me, the issue with Dan now is he said a lot of things when he was doing broadcast that were not accurate. Apparently, allegedly, now he's saying they were not accurate. So he made a lot of assumptions that he got there and said, well, those were wrong. Epstein didn't kill himself, and it goes on from there, files or whatever. And now he's, he doesn't stay there, and now he goes back, and I just don't know. I mean, like, okay, now what you say now, is that credible or what? Like,
yeah. Well, here's another thing. One of the things
I'm trying to be gentle here, but like, I'm not going to carry.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm on the side of the American people here. I'm on Trump's side, all right, politically. But I'm on the side of the American people. You can't trust this FBI anymore, and everybody knows that. Nobody's shocked by that statement I just made, that they don't trust the FBI. Look at the polling on it. The poll numbers are in the tank. They're underwater in terms of trust. And a law enforcement agency has to be trusted. But here's another thing that Dan said not too long after he got in there. He said, I've been in here for a couple of months, and what I have seen has shook me to my core. And he never said what it was. What shook you to your core, Dan? Tell the American people what shook you to your core from what you've seen so far being at the FBI, and he never followed up on it. So I'm kind of left like, well, that's a great soundbite. What I've seen has shook me to my core. Tell me what it was.
I mean, you nailed it. A lot of talk, not a lot of foundation, just a lot of talk. So now he's going to go back to talk. And look, I like Dan. I wish him well. We're not going to carry him because I think let's see how the credibility thing plays out. But he said a lot of things. He went there. There was a lot of hope when he went there that he would understand what was going on, and then he's there a year and he leaves. And yeah, what shook you to your core? I think that's pretty accurate. Like, he never said what that was. So a lot of things just not getting done. And I like Kash Patel also, but things not getting done. And I like Pam Bondi too. They're all my friends, all of them, but we're not getting anything done. So like you said, you're my friend, but you also got to be the the adult in the room here, and eventually you got to stop talking and start doing something, and it just hasn't happened. I mean, I can't point to anything they've done that's different. Can you?
Well, the only thing they have done one thing is that they indicted Comey, but that fell apart.
That
Now they
fell
can't
apart.
get
Yeah, that's
indict,
like in the tank.
tried to get another
They
one. And,
they completely they botched that.
yeah,
That was a botched job. They didn't have the right person with the right experience doing it, and that's thrown out. I mean, we have a legal system, but I think the defining moment is going to come here in Minnesota. Either they're going to take action or not. I mean, I would like somebody to tell me why two Somalian guys were able to get $1 million a day through TSA in Minneapolis airport. Like, if I was telling this story earlier, if I had $500,000 in cash in this suitcase right there in my studio, and forget Washington, I took the Mark to BWI and try to fly to, I don't know, where am I going next 2 weeks? Des Moines. I try to go to Des Moines, and I tried to get that through security. 30 minutes later, I'd be in a holding room in some jail.
right.
I mean,
Right.
30 minutes, right? These guys are doing it every day. Somebody had to sign off on that. We don't even have. We don't even know what the answers are to that. They've given us no answers on anything, and so that's the frustration.
It's a federal requirement that if you're traveling with more than $10,000 in cash, you have to declare it.
Well,
so
then
if this guy got $500,000 and let's say he declared it, well, then somebody should have been alerted, because that's the first thing that happens is some investigative agency comes in, maybe from Treasury, maybe from the IRS, and then they start doing some work on this. Hey, what's this guy doing? How did he get $500,000?
It was every day. It was like 3 times a week. They never did it. Somebody was looking the other way, and we don't even have that out there. Like, that should be an easy thing. Okay, did they file it? Yes. Whose desk did it go to? Joe Blow. Excuse me, Mr. Blow. What was it? Why did you sign off on this and didn't alert, Federal Reserve, IRS, Joe? Hello? Send him an email. Nothing. It's the frustration is building.